In the last episode, I said that transgenders are just a tiny minority of 0.5%. And while that is true, the efforts to normalise it in this generation do seem to be working to some extent. There's something going on here today because gender confusion is definitely clearly growing, especially amongst the young, it's got to be said, who we saw in the previous episode are particularly being targeted in this respect. Indeed, according to a 2012 study commissioned by NHS England, that year, there were just under 250 referrals for kids experiencing gender dysphoria. By 2022, however, just 10 years later, there were more than 5,000 referrals. So this is a nearly 2,000% increase in just 10 years. Indeed, so sudden has this increase been, especially amongst young girls, it's got to be said, that a team of NHS researchers were recently tasked with investigating this problem. Why are so many kids suddenly claiming to be trans? Where's this confusion coming from? One psychiatrist said, in the past few years, it's become an explosion. Many of us feel confused by what's happened, and it's often hard to talk to colleagues. The anonymous consultant, who's been practicing for 17 years, continued, I might have seen one child with gender dysphoria once every 2 years when I started practicing. It was very niche and rare. Now somewhere between 10 to 20% of my caseload is made up of adolescents registered as female at birth who identify as non-binary or trans. Another senior child psychiatrist said, in the last 5 to 10 years, we've seen a huge surge in young women who at the age of around 12 or 13 suddenly want to become boys. So what is going on here? Why has there been this sudden explosion in the young? Well, Miriam Grossman is a child and adolescent psychiatrist who's explored this issue in depth and authored 5 books on the subject. Here she is explaining her theory as to why so many young people, girls in particular, are now suddenly leaning into gender confusion and dysphoria.
So we have a new group, a new demographic, as you mentioned, mostly girls, still a lot of boys. It's not like it's 90-10. It's more like maybe 60-40. There's still an awful lot of boys. So this new group, was only recently identified in 2018. We had Lisa Littman do the research and coin the term rapid onset gender dysphoria. And it turned into a controversial term, and there was, a lot of, it's just unbelievable what's going on. The resistance on the left to fight any shred of evidence that their theories and their beliefs about how to treat these kids is wrong. But anyway, to answer your question, this is a group of a majority being young girls who never before expressed any discomfort with being a girl, and who, over a short period of time and following immersion in the internet and social media, and most of them also have a lot of at least one or multiple pre-existing psychiatric problems. So by that I mean a lot of them are on the autism spectrum. They have anxiety disorders. They have social phobia, depression. They may have self-injury. They may be cutting themselves. They may have undergone or gone through some trauma in their life. And so these are girls, and I'm not going to say just girls because there's a lot of people actually dismiss the boys, and I'm not going to do that. I've seen too many boys in my office and talked to too many parents of boys to do that. There's a ton of boys that are in this also. So they are led to believe that that if they don't feel comfortable with themselves, if they don't like getting their periods, they don't fit in with their friends, they're not stereotypical girls, perhaps they're attracted romantically to other girls. There's many different things that could be going on here. Well, then you might be a boy. And of course, you get a lot of points. Your status is elevated when you come out as non-male or female. I don't use the word cisgender because that's part of the lexicon that I refuse to use. If you come out to your friends as being neither male or female, it's, you're kind of an elevated status. And not only that, but you are no longer, you see, if you are a white, heterosexual, middle class or upper class student, you're an oppressor. I mean, this is a whole other subject, right?
One with which we're quite familiar, Miriam, believe me.
Okay. So you don't want to be an oppressor.
Yeah.
You want to be oppressed. You don't want to be an oppressor. So if you are a member of a sexual minority and, or another minority, you can't change your race. You can't change your socioeconomic status. You can't change, you're not going to come out and say you're gay or lesbian if you're not. But to say that you're neither male or female, okay.
There's a few points in that clip worth picking up on, I think. She says that kids with pre-existing problems like anxiety, depression, and trauma are vulnerable to gender confusion. And we've already covered the LGBTQ plus trauma connection in this series a few episodes back. She also says that girls get drawn into this through immersion in social media and through societal pressures. So again, this is the effects of people trying to normalize it in society that we just covered in the last episode as well. And again, any adults involved in that should hang their heads in shame. But I think where Grossman gets really interesting and where we begin to tie this whole series together really is in that final part where she starts talking about the direct role of intersectional theory on the mindsets of kids today. Kids today have realized that if they're white, heterosexual, middle class, and normal in every way, according to intersectionality, they are irredeemably evil. They're a villain. They're an oppressor. And of course, they don't want to be an evil villain. They don't want to be an oppressor. So they're actively trying to find something below the horizontal line that makes them oppressed. According to Grossman, who's been studying this for years, children are deliberately looking to find some kind of redemption almost in oppression. And the easiest way to find redemption in oppression, according to Grossman, although I wouldn't fully agree with what she said, but she says is to say that you're non-binary. And if you do this, it instantly elevates you. It makes you special in school. It makes you unique amongst your friends. It wins you special privileges as well, which we also looked at earlier in this series. In terms of the victimhood Olympics, everyone's striving for oppression. Oppression has become so incentivized, so everyone's striving for it. And this explains, partially at least, why transgenderism has become a kind of contagion in the Gen Z demographic. Everyone's striving for this. It's a generation of kids who have perniciously been convinced by intersectional theory that being normal makes them evil, and who are therefore desperate to find something broken about themselves that will give them some kind of redemption. They're scrambling to get under the horizontal line somehow, and weird sexuality is just the easiest way to do it. Intersectionality then is not encouraging health and happiness, but rather confusion and brokenness.